So over the last few days, I've covered a lot of Battlefield 5's new gameplay reveal at EA Play. I've gone over lots of brand new features for the game, and hopefully you guys are fully up to date. I did the best I could working out of a hotel room in Los Angeles, but I'm now back home in the UK behind my desk, so I might be able to do a little bit of a better job explaining things. Now, I had the opportunity to play Battlefield 5 for about 5 or 6 hours, noticed lots of good things about the game, but I'm also in a position to now express my concerns, and I do have quite a few of those. Battlefield 5 is still in pre-alpha, so everything is subject to change here, but I still think it's worth me expressing any concerns that I do have at this stage. Feedback is feedback, and right now I can promise you that DICE is really looking for that. First of all then, let's talk about visuals and graphical effects. All gameplay that you've seen on my channel from EA Play had the following options disabled: lens distortion, vignette, motion blur, and film grain. I would have also disabled chromatic aberration, but it was bugged in this build, and I could not turn it off. You might have noticed some of the white text in the corners of the screen had a really big RGB separation on them. I really don't like that in video games, and in fact it was added to Battlefield 1 without an option to turn it off, and that really annoyed me for quite some time. I'm just a fan of clean looks to the games that I play. I'd rather have a higher frame rate than look at the pretty visuals all the time, but even still, after disabling those options, I think Battlefield 5 looks a little bit too busy. And that's probably because of the intensity of the snowstorm on the Narvik map right now. It is absolutely horrific in my opinion, and countless times I lost track of my targets because my vision was being obscured by snow. The intensity of the snow scaled up and down during the matches I played, and when it was of a lower intensity, it was bearable, and sometimes there wasn't any snow at all, and I found the game much easier to play. I'm not complaining that it is actually snowing in the map, I get that. Thematically it is correct, it is a snow map after all, but it's just the higher intensities when that kicked in I really didn't enjoy playing, and the fact it interfered with my ability to shoot at targets, that's a big no-no from me. It actually felt like that DICE had just cranked up the snow to 11, that's usually the case with first gameplay reveals. I'm just not a fan of that. In general, Battlefield 5 looks absolutely stunning, and some of the effects and choices are really cool, but thus far, those effects and choices appear to be driven by DICE wanting people to see the game in its full glory. I'd have preferred a cleaner look overall, so we could have focused on some underlying new features. It's almost a given now that every new Battlefield title that's released will look stunning. I know that's something that DICE is extremely proud of, but surely that's what the multiplayer trailer is for. When it comes to releasing brand new gameplay, I feel we should be focusing on how the game is actually different and better than the previous game, not just how pretty it is. I do hope DICE reduces that maximum intensity of the snow as we get closer to release, and fixes that nasty bug where snow falls inside broken buildings as well. That was a little bit jarring to see. I'm not complaining when the wall has been broken down and snow actually gets into the building, but there were bugs where the house was still fully intact and it was snowing inside. That was a little bit weird. Those silly lighting bugs that we had in Battlefield 1, where if you look inside and outside a building, sometimes it can look really bright and really dark. Those are in Battlefield 5 as well, and I really hope that DICE fix those. Despite them fixing them in Battlefield 1 previously, it looks like they need to fix it again here in Battlefield 5. I'd like to see that addressed before the release. A couple of times I thought buildings were completely clear, where in fact a player was obscured by some bad lighting effects. And lastly, this one really irked me, the new medal flare animation. I'm going to play that for you now, and then pause it. That's just ridiculous. What happens if the animation ends up muddying my vision as I'm trying to shoot somebody? I get it looks really cool when the two flashes go over the top of each other that signify V for victory and V for Battlefield 5, but it detracts from gameplay, and it needs a major tone down in my opinion. Secondly, and this is something I believe was bugged in this build of the game, but I'm going to mention it anyway because a lot of people are concerned about this, and at the time, when I didn't realise it was bugged, I was concerned about it as well. The lack of certain HUD icons to identify players that need to be revived. DICE now has two separate icons in Battlefield 5 for reviving players, one for medics who can revive anyone on their team, and one for the buddy revive system, which is available to all players within a squad. Now, neither of those icons were appearing properly during the play sessions I took part in, and that resulted in a massive decrease in the number of revives being conducted. You might remember during Battlefield 1's beta that the revive icons didn't work there either, and lots of people ended up not being revived and would just return to the spawn screen and jump back into the match that way. The new buddy revives did take a considerable amount of time to complete, as they should do when comparing it to a medic revive, who is equipped to revive people quickly, but not having the icons relating to different revives active not only made it difficult to see who needed to be revived, but also at what range the animation would start to activate. I had to rely on the button prompt UI element appearing when I was close enough to a down player to know when I could start a revive process. That isn't ideal. Running around in small circles trying to activate a brand new, longer animation for reviving people made me a very easy target for the enemy team. Now, I've spoken to Natalie Eek, who is a UX designer on Battlefield 5. She confirmed the icons were indeed bugged during the EA Play build, and should have been present but weren't, which is unfortunate. She also confirmed some updated player icons have been implemented into Battlefield 5, where if your teammates use the commo rows to request health or ammo, the blue or green dot above their heads changes. It becomes slightly larger, and then also indicates the kit icon of the player, so that you, the person who requested help, can go and find someone to actually help you. This reflects the icons we currently have in other Battlefield games that flash when someone has asked for ammo or for health. These are good steps forwards for indirect communication in Battlefield 5. That's something that Battlefield 5 really needs, especially with the complete removal of 3D spotting and the ability to communicate with visuals where players might actually be. And speaking of spotting, third, I think the readability of the game right now is somewhat of a concern. I spoke with Daniel Berlin recently. We discussed the removal of 3D spotting and what DICE was planning to do to give players more tools to be able to read the game and then react to different enemy threats. He stated the team would be leaning more heavily on detailed lighting of the characters and different colour palettes for the different factions in the game, which on paper sounds like a good solution. However, during the EA Play build, I did find it much harder than I would have liked to distinguish a friendly player from an enemy player. The huge presence of snowfall really didn't help matters, and I'm of course still adjusting to not hammering the spot button to light up enemies, but sometimes an enemy player would move up on our location and just start mixing in with us, trying to get a melee kill or something. They would easily blend in with the rest of the players in that location. Only when you got close enough to them would you see the small player icon pop up in red, telling you that it was an enemy because you're standing 5 feet away from an enemy. I found that rather alarming. Daniel also said they're aware of the concerns that players are stating they may find it more difficult at first, but they believe within the first couple of weeks, players will learn the general look and feel of different factions. My extended concern on top of that, however, is not having distinct silhouettes for different classes and archetypes, and therefore at range potentially not knowing what type of player you're actually coming up against. The outlier here is the Scout class, which retains the scope glint as it has for some time now, but other classes are still much harder to distinguish, and certain Scout archetypes, I believe, will be able to use weapons other than bolt action rifles, so you may not always be able to rely on that scope glint. I just mentioned the class and archetype systems in Battlefield 5. Those are other big concerns of mine. They still haven't properly been shown off yet, and arguably, they're one of the biggest new innovations in Battlefield 5. The EA Play build of the game only showed off 5 different archetypes, 1 each for Assault, Medic and Scout, and 2 for the support, and they were extremely locked down in their functionality. DICE is advertising the company in Battlefield 5 as a big way to curate, customize, and then use all the different things you unlock along your way, which means it will encompass a lot of what you do in this brand new game, but we simply don't have any information yet really about this system and how it's going to work. I mean, we do have some information, but We don't have any context for it. We haven't seen any footage of the company yet and how the archetype system is really going to work and how you can customize those to suit your playstyle. It also concerns me because if DICE, even at this early stage, is choosing not to show a lot of things off, does that mean they don't really have a lot to show? I mean, when I looked at the archetype selection within the deploy screen, you can see that right here, there was a considerable amount of space left empty, and even a message saying more archetypes coming soon, and I assume more archetypes will go right there next to the others, but we really don't have much more information other than that. I'd be disappointed if DICE adds this new and more robust class system into the game and then come to the launch and it's not as fleshed out as it seems to be. That's why I'm concerned. We just don't really know a lot about it yet. And lastly, I'm a little bit concerned about the grenades in Battlefield 5, although this is much of a softer concern than everything else. And before I go on, no, honestly, there wasn't an insane amount of grenade spam in the game, and really, there wasn't that much spam at all, which is great to be able to report to you guys. It seems DICE really did listen this time around and got the balancing right at the first showing, which is awesome, but the grenade system somewhat reflects what is already available in Battlefield 1 a little bit too closely for my liking. Grenades are still smart, and that's to say the fuse timer doesn't start until it touches the ground. That means you can throw a grenade really high into the air, wait a good 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds for it to come all the way back down, hit the ground, wait another few seconds, and then it explodes. I'm not really a huge fan of that. I much prefer Battlefield 3's system where you needed to predict the arc and drop of the grenade and then balance that against the fuse time of the grenade the moment it left your hand, rather than waiting for it to drop and then start the fuse. That being said, the throwing times of grenades have been extended a little bit, which is nice. It's not insanely quick to throw your grenades anymore. It is still a little bit quicker than what I'd like, but it is a step in the right direction from DICE. Grenades are moving back towards becoming tools, or gadgets even, rather than insanely lethal weapons like they were in Battlefield 1. So I'm concerned, but things are moving in the right direction. Obviously, as I stated at the start of this video, these are my concerns and dislikes based on my time played at EA Play, and that amounts to about 5 or 6 hours at this point. It's still really not enough to have tested the game properly, and we're still only experiencing one map and 2 different game modes, Narvik on Airborne and Breakthrough. I'm hoping DICE release some sort of alpha soon, so more players can get their hands on the game and start to deliver the feedback that DICE needs to polish things off. The game is in a good position right now, but there are plenty of rough edges that need to be smoothed out, and still plenty of things that they are yet to show off. Thank you very much for watching today, and thank you for your support in the last few weeks as well. This is the best my channel has ever performed, and it's just so great to see so many comments pouring in from other players who are passionate about Battlefield and just want to make the game even better. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications as well. Click that bell next to the subscribe button and check you've got them switched on. That way you won't miss any of my future videos. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.